Team Cranbrook, and I'm Sam.
I'm Justin.
I'm Yushi.
And I'm Pinkal.
First, let's go for a Michigan economic overview. Unfortunately, the Michigan economy has been stagnating. According from info from the Detroit Regional Chamber and the MCDA, Michigan's economy is currently slow. As since June 2024 to December 2024, there were 6 consecutive months where the unemployment rate exceeded the U.S. unemployment rate. Among 50 states, Michigan currently ranks 5th in terms of unemployment rate. And since December 2023 to December 2024, there's been a 21% increase in the number of unemployed people in Michigan. While doing some research, we stumbled upon a University of Michigan economics seminar. And here's the graph showing the decline in the job growth over 2021 to the end of 2023. The paper cites that this is due to the Fed's contractionary monetary policy, where they increase interest rates to tie down inflation. And because manufacturing is heavily swayed by interest rates due to the fact that higher interest rates make manufacturing firms more harder to borrow stuff, especially since manufacturing needs a lot of money to produce a lot of stuff. Our economy is particularly volatile in terms of interest rates. Furthermore, Michigan's economy, as this says Detroit's from the House Fiscal Agency of 2023, it projected in 2023 that Michigan would lose around 10% of its share in the auto industry in Detroit alone. And it just shows how our economy has been declining lately because of its overall heavy reliance on the automobile industry. So other than the automobile industry, 2 other major industries in Michigan include farming and tourism, as we have the Great Lakes and we're the largest producer of cherries.
So this is the Bloomfield Hills economic overview. And just to give you a little bit of context, Bloomfield Hills rose to prominence in the early of 20th century when rich Detroit residents came to this area and brought up the land. It's had a huge cultural significance throughout the ages, being the setting of many churches, such as Kirk in the Hills and Christ Church. Currently, it is home to many wealthy retired people, as well as students in the city's esteemed schools. Right now, Bloomfield Hill Public Schools is ranked 5th in the state for education, while Cranbrook Schools is ranked 1st in the state for private schools. Located in Oakland County, as a northern suburb of Detroit, the current population is around 4,400 people. The current poverty rate is around 3.32%, and the unemployment rate is around 2.60%. Both of these statistics are much lower than the state averages, which are 13.5% for poverty rate and 5% for unemployment rate. Well, there's a large portion of younger students, as well as older retired people. As you can see, this graph shows that there's clearly a lack of young adults. For the people who are currently employed, over 96% work white-collar jobs, most of which are for private companies. Regarding the most popular occupations in Bloomfield Hills, you can see that over 50% of people work in one of these 4 industries. It's also worth mentioning that over 99% of residents have at least a high school diploma, and over 80% have at least a bachelor's degree. So just to summarize, in the Bloomfield economy, we have a very low unemployment and poverty rate when compared to the greater state of Michigan, and we have a very educated population, and we have a very good environmental conservation efforts. However, some of our weaknesses include a small elderly population, lack of public transportation, such as buses, and we have very high operational fixed costs because rent is very high. Also, there's a lack of entrepreneurship and small businesses. So now Justin will talk about more about our problems in the city.
Thank you, Yushi. Now we're going to discuss about the critical economic challenge that we're facing in Bloomfield Hills. So first of all, the major problem in Bloomfield Hills is stagnant population that is mainly caused by the outflux of younger population. As you can see in the data, the population has remained stagnant over the past few decades, and now we're going to look closer look on the demographics. The major demographic challenge is the aging population and the distribution among our population. So as you can see, the Bloomfield Hills median age is 50.2 years old, which is significantly higher than the Michigan's average of 40.2 years old. And moreover, there's a noticeable discrepancy in the population of younger workforce, mainly from ages from 20s to 40s, which are only 27% compared to the state's average of 37%. And as you can see, this is a widespread problem among Michigan, that as soon as people reach their professional careers, as they approach 20s, they flee out of the cities and their community to seek for better economic opportunities. And this lack of young generation and diversity in the community draws three major problems: the lack of social mobility, absence of cultural developments, and barriers for entrepreneurships and economic developments. So first, for lack of social mobility. Even though the population in Bloomfield Hills may not be affected immediately, an exclusive community without those younger generation people could limit the localized initiatives that require younger workforces participation in their ideas. If fewer young people have access to housing and local economic opportunities, this could prevent the city from being as socially active as it could be. Another problem here is the absence of cultural development. In general, diversity creates a richer cultural environment. Bloomfield Hills, while it may be rich in arts and history, they might miss out the cultural and creative contributions that could be made by the younger generations. For example, arts and recreational activities that are more often followed by the younger generations could be missed out as these populations flee out of the city due to seeking for economic opportunities. And finally, is that the lack of younger residents could also limit the economic development that could be made. Entrepreneurships and small businesses that seek to establish themselves in Bloomfield Hills will have a hard time finding their workforce because of the scarcity of the younger workforce present in Bloomfield Hills. Now, moving on to a larger local issue of Michigan is obviously the over-reliance of automotive industry in Michigan. Currently, there's a high proportion that's compared to the US that's reliant on automotive industry, and this can cause several problems as in cases of recessions and economic impacts. So thus it is imperative for Michigan to diversify its economics in order to maintain a sustainable, stable economy with long-term growth. And Pinkon is going to explain how Bloomfield Hills can be the key for economic diversification and attracting younger population.
Thank you, Justin. So as we've identified in the past two parts, the main two problems are first, the aging population, and second, it's going to be the diversification of these kind of sectors. So we have a three kind of step approach to approaching that. First is going to be, we're going to try to attract investment, and second, we're trying to increase the social infrastructure in the region, and lastly, we're going to be rebranding the kind of Bloomfield Hills name to encourage further investment, especially through the revitalization of the bank. So let's take a look at that. So first is going to be encouraging entrepreneurship. There's kind of two main ways we can approach this throughout all three. That's going to be giving tax breaks and grants to these companies. Currently, there's current barriers to get into these companies, and giving these tax breaks are able to subsidize them and catalyze the movement and growth of different businesses in the region that may have not actually tried to take that step, have there not been the tax breaks there. But secondly is also the changing of the zoning laws. Currently, there's tons of different zoning laws that cost thousands of dollars. So getting rid of those like zoning laws and actually making certain regions where you're trying to encourage the growth is going to be especially crucial, so that we can actually incentivize the businesses to come into the region. That's going to diversify the economy. That's also going to bring in more new investors. Secondly is going to be social infrastructure. Kind of key part of this is we're going to try to target infrastructure targeting the youth. So that's going to be things like restaurants and bars. That's going to be things like social clubs, like a country club in the region, kind of bringing to the social culture, and then also an emphasis on the arts, right? Bloomfield has a rich history in the 20s of having wealthy, affluent families coming from trying to leave the industrial areas and coming to like the rolling green, luxurious hills. That's going to be what we're trying to promote here. And lastly, it's going to be the preservation of the environment on the next slide. So there's a couple of key things we're doing right now already, which is like spending money on preserving these historical landmarks and the environment, but there's a couple things that we can improve on. So first, we can try to rebrand ourselves as more eco-friendly and also spend more on the marketing towards other places to actually attract these young investors. So things like eco-friendliness and energy efficiency has been especially like effective in other regions in the place because it makes it seem more luxurious and also provides tons of short-term job opportunities and economic growth. Now we're going to look at a quick case study with Traverse City. Traverse City is a small city with a population around 15,000 in the northwestern area of the Lower Peninsula, and it primarily focused on agriculture. So a couple similarities that Traverse City would have with Bloomfield Hills is one, it's kind of its connection with nature. Although not as prominent in Bloomfield Hills as it is with Traverse City's lakes and the dunes, Bloomfield Hills does have a deep connection with nature, and it's the reason why those families from Detroit actually moved there to seek that greater opportunities. Second is obviously going to be the cultural institutions in the region, and lastly, it's going to obviously be that they're both small communities. And there's a couple of differences between the two, but they're not that great.
including the implicit cost of city revenue due to tax breaks for entrepreneurs, business grants and loans, and beautification costs of the environment. Looking at past records of costs that went to similar efforts, we estimate around $1.5 million a year. However, the amount of time that it will take to pass new official zoning law changes and approve these tax breaks might take a while, as currently the Bloomfield Hills government is kind of slow at dealing with these things. Also, competition from local cities that have already established areas might make things trouble for us as attracting entrepreneurship. Also, a lack of entrepreneurship around these areas due to the fact that we're fixing it now can also pose a potential problem. Currently, Bloomfield Hills actually has enough funds to pursue this project on their own completely. As the graph over there shows, they make around $13 million every year in tax revenue alone, and after all expenses are paid, they have $1 million in excess revenue per year. Plus, they have $4.5 million in excess funds right now. However, if the project turns out to require more funds than expected, we consider tax incrementing financing, contributions from other residents, and state and county grants, which would eliminate a lot of costs from our end. To measure our results, we take it from three points. Short term, we'll record new business registrations and conduct satisfaction surveys to see how we're doing at the start. Medium term, we'll track job creations and cash flow growth in the 3 to 5 year range. And long term, we want to look at demographic shifts, specifically the age metrics and the population density for certain ages, to make sure that more young adults are coming in and not leaving the area due to pursuing more economic opportunities. By implementing and carefully measuring this initiative, Bloomfield Hills can foster local business growth, ensure the city's continued prosperity, and enhance economic diversity. Thank you.